Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Cash PT Lunch Hour. I'm your host, LeBauer, and today is kind of like part two in a series of objections and closing the sale. And today, special guest is Amber Harris. She lives here in Greensboro. She works for us at LeBauer PT. She is our customer care specialist, and I wanted to bring her on because Amber plays a vital role in the growth of our business and really enrolling patients into our physical therapy programs. So Amber, thank you for joining us on the show. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad your boss was able to give you the time off to come on the podcast.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
For anyone listening, I interviewed Amber the first time on the podcast back. It was episode 52. I don't think it was very far after she started working with us. She's been here over 2 years now. And you've changed a ton, transformed a lot of things, and also helped hundreds of people in that time. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I wanted to bring you on today because, a lot of people are struggling with this whole coronavirus thing and enrolling their patients. And so let me just, so I want to talk about kind of your role in that and like the vital role of like a front desk assistant person, customer care specialist. But you also serve as like you tee up the sale for Caitlin and you close the sales. You close the deals too, right?
Right.
So before we get into that, I just want to ask you a few questions. Like, what have you been doing in the last 3 to 4 months just to kind of take care of your body and to stay healthy so that you can focus on work and other things in your life?
Sure. Well, physical fitness is a vital part of my overall wellness. If I didn't do it, I feel like I would just explode. Yeah. I mean, I feel like everyone's kind of gotten to that point where you feel like you have to go run or you have to just like expel that energy in some sort of physical way. So of course, with the pandemic, not having access to a gym has definitely played a part. So I've taken up running, kind of like everybody else. I've definitely gotten more into running right now, and just still doing my yoga practice each week has really helped me just kind of stay sane.
Yeah. Have you felt the urge to come beat up the punching bag I have out back?
Yeah, it depends on the day. But yeah, that absolutely helps.
Yeah, because I know it's frustrating sometimes. It's like I've put you in this role where you have to have difficult conversations with people, right?
Right.
And you get like pushback from people that are just upset at the world or other people.
Right. And especially more so now, you can pick up on that a little bit more so now during, the pandemic when everyone's struggling in their own way.
Yeah, I started to notice it, and I know you did too, but I started to notice it like this time last year. Last year, people were just getting a little irritated and agitated, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember, so when someone calls you and they're irritated and agitated, or maybe they've called you back, like how do you handle it? Like not just with what you say on the phone, but also how do you handle like the extra load that someone's like dumping on you of their like emotions and stuff?
So is this scenario, when somebody has called and then they're calling back like a second time, or?
Like when someone calls on the phone and they're just like, like you've had people like berate you on the phone. Like, and if anyone's watching this on YouTube, Amber's not like a person that like deserves to be berated, but people do that. Like people have done that. I mean, they used to do it to me, but not as much because I was also the treating therapist. They would hide that stuff.
Yes.
How do you respond to them if someone calls and they're upset about, usually it's a billing thing or a cost thing, and it usually really doesn't have much to do with us, but like how do you handle it? Do you like, is there something that you say to them or a way that you kind of diffuse the conversation so that you can kind of get the information out of them you need?
Right. So initially when these types of calls come through, what I typically do is I just let them speak. Because a lot of times when people are at that elevated level of anger, it doesn't really matter what you say, they don't want to hear it. So a lot of times I'll just let them speak. I'll let them have, the full phone line. And what's funny is, when they're done talking, I kind of wait. Kind of pause. And then I just say, I hear you. I understand. Like, that is frustrating. And you pretty much just want to acknowledge what they're saying and just try to help diffuse the situation. And a lot of times that does help knock the initial, anger out of it. But, what helps me is just remembering that a lot of times it's just displaced anger. These people are angry at their pain or their situation or, just the state of the world right now. But I let them talk, and then I just try to diffuse the situation and just kind of dissect what they're talking about. Right. And then obviously try to, come to some sort of resolution.
Right. Because it's almost like you're just the only person that's easy to get on the phone. Like probably everyone else are trying to call, they can't get them on the phone, right?
Right.
I mean, God, that's what I feel like. I'm like, well, there were so many years where we didn't get this. Even like your first year working with us, we hardly got any kind of calls of people being angry or upset. And it's just like, it hadn't like gone up sharply, but it's just like ramped up in the last year. Right? Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think to me, like I see that as probably the hardest part of your job. I don't know. Do you feel like there's something else that's harder that you do?
No, I would agree with you that just kind of diffusing angry clients, is definitely the hardest part of my job.
Right. So when people call in general, most of the time, they're calling looking for something, some solution to a problem, right? They're not always calling angry. They're generally calling. What's the first thing, like when someone calls or when, so I want to get to like how we kind of start kind of teeing up this sale for Caitlin, because we don't just, get their date of birth, insurance card number, and book an appointment, right? We do a whole lot more.
Right.
Can you talk about what happens in the first phone call, whether it's a patient calling in for us or they've filled out one of our forms and you're calling out? Can you talk a little bit about how does that call go and what are some of the key questions that you ask or cover?
Sure. So we'll use the scenario, which is the most popular, I would think, for us. The way people find us is by an online Google search. So, they've been told that they need physical therapy and they just need to find one in town, or, that they think physical therapy will help them. They've never tried it before. So they'll call me, and a lot of times the first thing that they'll say is, hey, do you take my insurance? And that's not the way that we start off the phone call here. So I'll say, I would love to answer that for you, but do you mind if I just ask you a few questions to start with and just make sure that you're a good fit? And most times they're A-okay with that. I would say maybe 1 out of 10 is like, no, I just need you to answer my questions so I can go about my day. So then, I'll just simply start asking them questions, like, tell me a little bit more about what's going on with you and why you're seeking out physical therapy at this time. And then of course that just naturally leads to a conversation, an organic conversation where they're just simply telling me what's been going on in their life lately, what's the issue that they're dealing with. And then of course I'll dig a little bit deeper and ask them, well, what is that preventing you from doing or enjoying? And that can be anything as far as like, I can't even lift the barbell anymore. It's seriously affecting my overall happiness. Like I'm feeling depressed because I can't work out, to, a little bit older clientele. Like I'm not able to get down on the ground and play with my grandkids. I feel like I'm missing out on a big piece of their lives. And so, by asking these questions, they kind of start telling me a little bit more details about what's going on in their life, and you can really figure out the why and why they're calling, which kind of helps it bring it back to a little bit more of a humanistic conversation versus just, oh, your shoulder is hurt. Right.
So what would you say is your number one goal in that first conversation? Like what's the goal or information that you're looking for,
I would say my personal goal in that first conversation is to develop a little bit of rapport with them and to develop a little bit of trust. So they can call us and automatically know that most times when I get off the phone with people, my hope is that they know that we are a different physical therapy clinic. And most times I feel like they get that by the time we get off the phone. they already have a feel that they're going to get a different kind of treatment here.
Right, right. Would you say that majority of people who are calling us have already had physical therapy somewhere else, or is it their first time? Do you have a feeling of, where we stand with that? Because I don't
Yeah,
really know yet. But
that's a great question. I would say presently 50-50. A lot of times we are people's first go at physical therapy, which sets the bar really high. Like, they're never going to want to go anywhere else. And then the other half would be folks who have been let down by the medical system, and we are pretty much their last resort. These folks are a little bit, just sad and like no hope. So yeah, just kind of half and half.
Yeah. So going back to this conversation when someone calls and they say, well, do you take Aetna, or you in network with my insurance, and you redirect to try to figure out, like, can we help them? And they go, no, Amber, I just need to know if you take my insurance so I can go about my day. How do you handle that? What's the next thing you say, or, how does that conversation go?
Typically, if people kind of, put up that obstacle with me, I will, of course, try to redirect them. And if they don't want to be redirected and tell me, no, I just need to know, do you accept my insurance? That's what I'm calling for. Then I simply say, I just get real with them and I say, does it matter what kind of insurance we accept if we don't even know if we can help you or not? And that typically gets them, because it really makes them think, and they're like, yeah, that's true. I'm like, okay, so is it okay if I just ask you a few more questions just to ensure that we're the right fit for each other? And don't worry, because if we're not going to leave you empty-handed. I'll point you in the right direction, but I just want to make sure that we're the best fit for you. And then that typically kind of diffuses them, and they're a little bit more willing to answer some of my questions. And at the end, I will honor their, request that they ask. And at the end, I'll say, okay, well, to wrap things up, I do want to address the question that you asked in the beginning. And I'll just answer it honest with them. And I think most people really respect just being, forthright, and just being upfront and not feeling like they're having the wool, pulled over them.
Right. When you say answer it honestly, do you say, no, we're not in network with your insurance, or is there something else that you say?
No, I don't say that. I'll say, one of two things. I'll say, we're not affiliated with insurance providers. However, all of our patients have great insurance, and we have an app that we're partnered with that makes filing your claims super easy. And I will go over that in great detail with you at the end of your evaluation. And most people are, that sounds great. Now, some people who are a little bit more planner or on top of their, insurance options will dig a little deeper and ask me more questions about, that filing process. But most people are like, okay, that sounds great.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, so after this kind of first conversation, what's next? Is this when they say sounds great, at that point, is that when you get them on a schedule with Dr. Herzog, or is there some other step or conversation that you have with them?
Yeah, typically the next step would be scheduling them and getting them on, Dr. Herzog's schedule. And then, of course, right now, given the pandemic, the next step that I end with is just kind of covering our COVID-19 procedures and policies.
Awesome. And then let's come, I'm going to try to figure out the right order. I don't want to jump to the end. I want to kind of stick with this. When people come in, for the last few years, we've been offering like a free total body diagnostic exam. But now, since COVID, we had 2.5 months or so where we weren't seeing people in person. Now we are seeing people in person. Can you talk a little bit about what we changed as part of our system and how we changed it, and kind of how are you doing it?
Sure.
Like with going from like the free visit to the $35 visit. Like, can you just talk a bit about what we changed? What were the things we were struggling with, and then what did we change, and how's that working out right now?
Sure. So pre-pandemic, we would offer folks a total body diagnostic,
Mm-hmm.
and that is our verbiage for a free consultation, just for folks who are kind of on the fence about things and not sure. So that was pre-pandemic. We're not post-pandemic yet, so in the midst of the pandemic, now we have kind of shifted, because it's vital that businesses do that whenever we're given obstacles. So we keep pivoting, right? So what we're doing now is we're offering total body diagnostic. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me retract that. We're offering, what I'll tell patients or new clients is, what we're offering our new clientele are one of two options.
Mm-hmm.
The first option is going to be an online discovery visit. This is essentially, a 20-minute online consult where you'll get to discuss, your questions and concerns one-on-one with a physical therapist. No diagnosis or treatment or plan of care will be given at that time. It's more of a discussion-based appointment, just so we can help, ease your concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's option one. And also for people who are a little bit hesitant about venturing out and going anywhere right now. The second option is a total body diagnostic, and that's an in-person appointment, which is, again, about 20 to 30 minutes max. And that's when, they get to come in, speak with the physical therapist. And at that time, if they choose to become a patient, then of course they can roll it over into their first treatment. However, if they're still not ready, they can go home and mull things over. But the thing that we've done that's different during the pandemic is that we have tied a $35 nominal fee to this total body diagnostic. And I've realized that really does help, because anytime anyone pays for anything, they're going to have a little bit more value tied to that appointment.
Right.
But we also tell them, if you choose to become a patient with us during this appointment, that $35 nominal fee will be applied to your overall, healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So,
yep. And what was the problem we were encountering like 4 or 5 weeks ago that we decided to kind of switch to this? Do you remember?
I think I do. I think it's, people were kind of taking advantage of just getting a free appointment, but then not really being in the place where they were ready to commit to a plan of care. And sometimes whenever you, offer up free advice, people think, oh, well, I just want you to tell me how to fix myself.
Yeah.
And that's not the goal of a total body diagnostics.
Right. Right. Yeah. It was also, and the prior episode on the podcast, I discussed with Caitlin.
Yeah.
And so that's great, because when I was talking to her about it, that wasn't the perspective that she came up with. And so one of the reasons I decided to move us in this direction was because of what you just said. Plus she was saying, well, I'm spending an hour on the call with people.
Yes.
In trying to do a movement assessment, people are having difficulty with not only getting on the video, but moving the camera around. And she's like, I can't really see them. I can't touch them. And then at the same time, people wanted to come in to see us in person,
right?
But then they weren't being serious about it. And we got to clean the place and set, and even have like time before and after. And it's like, if we're going to do all that and go through this whole protocol with someone who's not even committed, it's like, so all three, so that was even my perspective. So all three of those reasons are reasons why it's kind of made sense to kind of shift to this. And it took me, I think we did it, and two weeks went by and we didn't have any new patients come in. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't working yet. But I think we've had probably 6 of the 8 people who've done it convert to patients.
At least. Yeah. Right.
So I think it's working pretty well. Do you think like it's been a pretty easy transition to doing this like paid total body diagnostic?
Absolutely. I think it's been a very smooth transition, and we haven't had any issues with it. I mean, of course we've had people who come in and, because that is, like you said, that is our time, and we are taking sanitation and disinfecting to a whole new level these days. It's important that people see value and tie value to these appointments, even if it is a consult.
Right. And the people that are deciding not to move forward with therapy at that time, they're still paying like $35, right?
Exactly.
When do you take that payment from them?
It honestly depends on how our day is kind of time blocked, and depends on the appointment type. especially since I'm doing like the COVID screening prior to the patients coming inside. So sometimes I've been toying with this, honestly, and sometimes I'll take the $35 payment before they are taken back, and then other times I'll have them come out and do it. Like when they wrap things up. So I've done it both ways, and I'm not sure exactly which way I'm liking better, because if you do it before, it almost feels like a copay. But what I've realized is people are so accustomed and conditioned to paying a copay that they immediately come out and they're whipping out their card to me. And I'm like, oh, we'll take care of that after your appointment. Like, you know, we'll walk you back to your treatment room now. But, you know, if anyone's willing to go ahead and pay, we'll take it.
Awesome. Are people, would you give them those two options, like free online discovery visit or in-person total body diagnostic for $35? Are they choosing the free one, or are they pretty much everyone choosing to come in person?
Great question. Ever since we started the two options, everyone has chosen the in-person total body diagnostic.
Wow.
Yep, they want to be seen in person. They feel like that's going to get them further. That's going to get them more answers. And so, yeah, every single person has chosen to be seen in clinic.
Right. Is anyone doing the talk to a PT right now? Are we getting any of those in the last 4 or 5 weeks?
We have not gotten many of those in the last 4 to 5 weeks, no. But I would say, like, at the very start of COVID-19, we got a lot of those.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So someone comes in, they do their total body diagnostic with Dr. Herzog. What happens when she's finished? Tell us about, like, what's your role when she finishes with a patient? She's said, hey, we're going to do this plan of care program. It's whether it's like a 5 visit or 8 visit in generally. What happens? Like, she walks them out, and like, how does that conversation go? Because you kind of take over like that last bit of the sale, taking payment, even handling some objections and following up, right? So can you talk us through how that goes?
Sure. So, you know, Dr. Herzog will bring the patient out, and this scenario are, you know, new patients who, you know, she's just finished like the consult or the eval with. So she'll bring them up front, and, you know, she'll say, you know, her farewells. It was great meeting you. Can't wait to work with you. Like, you've got this. And then she kind of hands it off to me. And in the handoff, she just basically summarizes what her plan of care and the course of action will be. So she'll say, you know, Amber so-and-so is going to get, you know, the 8-pack of physical therapy. And then they'll typically just look at or Dr. Herzog will look at the patient and say, Amber will cover all this in detail with you, and you can step right over here, and then we'll cover that. What I like to do in the beginning is not deal with finances right when they bring the patients up, because I just don't think that that's a smooth transition. So what I like to do is just kind of like talk to them and go ahead and get them scheduled. So what we typically like to do is, for example, if Dr. Herzog recommends an 8-pack of physical therapy, then I'll go ahead and try to get them scheduled halfway through. So we'll go ahead and get their four next appointments in the books, logged in. And then, you know, we have menus. So people have something tangible, and also a lot of folks like to be able to see something. So we have these menus that we have created that has our listing of our payment plan options and all these different things. And then I'll hand it over to them, and we'll just go through it together. And then I just ask them if they have any other questions for me, which typically, you know, they do. And we'll just kind of go over the questions, and then they choose what option, you know, what finance option is best for them, be it, you know, pay in full or pay as you go, or the payment plan option. If they do the payment plan option, you know, we get them all signed up for that. And we just take care of it. And then typically I will end with our filing process for the claims, and just kind of go over the pamphlet with them and make sure that they don't have any questions or concerns with that.
Awesome. What is everyone like easy, or are you getting objections at this stage too from patients?
Usually at this stage, I don't have too many objections, because they already know what they're in for. You know, if they've come and they've had that total body diagnostic consult with Dr. Herzog, she's up front with them and says, you know, this is what my recommendation would be. This is the plan that I would start you on. So a lot of times they already know before they even come out to see me what that total, you know, healthcare investment is going to be. So I would say at that point in it, I don't really have too many objections.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you, how do you handle if someone comes out and they're like, well, can I just pay as I go and see how it goes? Like, right? Because even
Mhm.
though Caitlin's recommended something and I think they come out and you offer like, what do you offer them all three options, or do you offer them, you know, payment plan, paid in full? How does that go when
Mhm.
when you start talking about the finances?
Right. Well, that is something we've also been toying around with right
Mm-hmm.
now. In the past, I would offer them all three options, you know, be it pay in full, pay as you go, or payment plan.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've noticed that it's much better to not offer them the pay as you go. I think people who are skeptical of, you know, are we able to help them? Are they
Mm-hmm.
going to get better? Have they been let down before? All these thoughts are running through their head. So they're fearful and they don't want to commit.
Right.
But anytime anyone kind of starts leaning towards the pay as you go option, I'm not, I don't really hold back, and I'll just say, you know, like, well, this is our least budget friendly option, but if that's
Mm-hmm.
the best route for you, then we will honor it. But just know that at any time, if you're ready to commit to your plan of care, it has to be 3 visits or more, but we
Mm-hmm.
will honor a discount if you want to pay in full at that time.
Right.
You know, and I just let them know that there are options,
Mm-hmm.
and that just because you start with the pay as you go option, you don't have to stick with that as your plan continues.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And is there, let's see, so you go over the payment, you get payment right then, right? Credit
Correct.
card, boom.
Mm-hmm.
And now the patient is hopefully committed to their plan of care,
Right.
um, and they go on their way. Is there anything like that you're doing at that point to kind of, I mean, besides taking payment, like, are there objections coming afterwards, or you know, are people calling back, like, are people calling back and saying, "Oh no, I want to change this," or is it pretty much once they've kind of made that decision, like the objections kind of have disappeared? We've conquered them at that point, and they disappear. Is that
Um,
clear what I'm asking?
I think so. I mean, typically once we get people started on
Mm-hmm.
their plan of care, you know, despite what payment plan they
Yeah.
choose, they do typically stick with it. I have had situations where people get to appointment number 2 or 3
Mm-hmm.
out of, you know, whatever was recommended, and they're ready to commit. And
Yeah.
they're like, will you still honor if I pay in full? And I'm like, absolutely, we
Mm-hmm.
will. You know, because like we're here to help you, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that happens sometimes. The only additional questions I ever get is truly about like the filing claims,
Okay.
and just kind of, you know, they want to make sure they're doing it right. They want to make sure, you know, that they have the codes right. But I've pretty much already created a system for that, and I send them, you know, like an electronic copy of their first receipt, and I've pretty much like circled and highlighted everything that they would need to know in order to file, and it's labeled and explained, and so it's foolproof in a way. So if they can get through that.
Awesome. You know what I'm
Yeah.
thinking about? I think what I'm thinking about is the times when, you know, like the 22-year-old comes in and they have an eval and they need to go check in with their parents, or someone leaves maybe and they're like, yes, I want to do it, but I have to go talk to my spouse, and you have to do some follow-up with them, right?
Right.
Is that something that you know as soon as Caitlin brings them out, or is that something you're discovering along in your part of the conversation with them?
Well, we've done a lot of homework on trying to tee up so we don't run into these issues. And experience is the only way that's really going to help you learn how to do these things. And of course, there's always going to be scenarios where it throws you off. But that's what I love about this job, because no 2 days are the same. So I would say for the younger patients, I pretty much try to handle that before they even come in. So if this is a college student or someone who is young, I will simply just ask them over the phone intake, are you financially independent? Do you have anyone who's helping you with your finances at this time? Or I'll ask them, is anyone helping you with your medical expenses at this time? Any of those ways. And a lot of times people, you know, the young ones will say, yeah, like I'm still on my parents' insurance. So what I would like to do instead of like, because I just tell them, well, your time is valuable, our time is valuable. So what we recommend is that you speak with your parent, or sometimes I'll ask permission and just say, can I have your parent's phone number? And I'll call them and kind of reach out and speak to them, because what we don't want to run into and what we try to avoid is having people come in and have something done, and then the parents are like, what? And then you kind of run into the whole headache of who's responsible for paying this bill now.
Right.
So we have had that, but a lot of times if you try to work that out before they even come in, then you avoid all of that. And the parents really appreciate it because they're on board with it and they know what's going on, and they know, there are no surprise bills.
Right. Thank you for that. I think what's interesting is that like the first few years of my practice, I was downtown Greensboro. So we weren't really close to UNCG. Then we moved here. We've been in this location for 7 years. And if anyone doesn't know Greensboro, we are a stone's throw away from the largest university in town, about maybe a quarter mile away.
Yes, my alma mater.
Right, that's where Amber went to school. And a lot of people choose this because the kids don't need a car necessarily to get here. They can ride their bike, or it's just close. But even in the last 2 or 3 years, I feel like we've had more students coming. And, I don't know, do you have an idea like why more students would be coming in the last 2 years than they did? Like, it was almost like as soon as I got, not when Derek was here, but when Tyler was here, all of a sudden we had more students coming in. I don't know why. Do you have any idea why that might be in the last few years?
Well, I can't speak on Derek's experience or what was happening at that time, but in my time here, which has been a little over 2 years now, I feel like we're getting a bunch of referrals from, UNC Greensboro, the university, because we are the closest in proximity. We are the closest physical therapy clinic to them. And so they have a referral coordinator in their healthcare center. And it's probably her job to know where all the physical therapy locations are in order to refer people out, where we're the first one, or we're the closest, so we get the first call. Then of course, I've developed a rapport with this referral coordinator, and her and I are on a first name basis. We're friends. I would consider her a friend at this point.
Awesome.
We talk almost on a weekly basis, especially now that the university is back in session. We've gotten referrals this week from her. So I think that is why we are the closest in proximity to the university. And once you develop a really good rapport with a referral coordinator, they're of course going to be more apt to sending you their referrals than another place.
No, that's awesome. Does she help tee up the conversation with the patients she's sending or with their family, or is it just because she knows us and now we've got this system for how to bring in students and young adults into the practice?
Right, or it would be the latter. So she does not do any of the teeing up for us. I think the only tee up she would do is say, hey, good news, this physical therapy clinic is right around the corner.
Yeah.
And then she's like, don't worry, you'll hear from them. And what I will do is our system that we just spoke about, I'll reach out to them and call them and kind of see what their situation is in terms of, financial independence or what have you. And then I'll usually ask, I'll ask permission to speak to a parent or guardian.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I want to throw this out. I've never talked to you about this, but I want people to know is that 6 or 7 years ago, when we moved over here, I knew the healthcare plan at UNCG had a $250 deductible out of network, no matter what. It was just the first $250 that you were responsible for, whether you were in network or out of network or anything. It was the best health plan in Greensboro. And if a student came to see us and they filed a claim, they'd pay the $250 and insurance would pay everything else. But that didn't bring students to our clinic. That wasn't why people came. And over the years, it's gotten more expensive. It went to $500, which is still a few years, which is still better than most other plans in town.
Right.
I don't know what it is now, but that's not the reason people are coming to see us, isn't the cost, right? It's everything else that you just explained and that you do, which is, you and Caitlin are doing, because I'm not even doing it anymore. You guys are doing it. So thank you very much. But that was the thing. It's it wasn't the cost. It's not the cost that's bringing them to us. It's everything else we're doing for people.
Right. Yeah, it's the experience, it's the atmosphere, it's the location. And I think that we're just different, you know, we're just a different kind of care. And I think once you have this standard of quality care, it's kind of hard to go back from that.
Yeah. What would you say is, in onboarding new patients, what would you say is the most difficult part of the process?
In onboarding a new patient, I would say the most difficult part would be the objections. But honestly, you know, just experience is only going is the only thing that's going to aid you in that. And I mean, being, you know, from podcast number 52 to now, I would say I have a lot more confidence, you know, with redirecting people and talking to people about, you know, their personal situations, and just trying to explain to them, you know, how we can be of help and of service to them. But just, you know, diffusing the obstacles and just learning how to like redirect would be the most difficult part of onboarding.
Awesome. Is there something that like, that, you know, like, is there a reason now that you know that we're worth every penny and that you're willing to go like fight for us? You know?
Yeah.
Like, is there something that happened or changed or over time since you've been working here that you were like, you know, like, we're worth it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it simply put, we get results. I've seen it, you know, firsthand. I don't know if there's anything more rewarding than seeing someone who's, you know, come in here feeling defeated, or, you know, someone who was walking with, you know, a walker or a cane, and then you see them walking out completely independent, or you see, you know, the patient return to whatever, you know, sport or physical goal that they wanted to attain. That's just icing on the cake for me. And you know, we don't discharge people here. We call it their graduation. You know, and they get like a whole bunch of goodies on graduation day, and it's always bittersweet. You know, because our patients really do feel like family here. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Are there any other secrets that you have for, you know, taking care of our patients, making them feel warm and welcome, or just, you know, agreeing to, you know, working with us? Like, if they have a slight objection or hesitation, is there anything that you do or can share, you know, that I might not know about?
I don't know if I have any secrets. I mean, for myself personally, I just always try to treat people how I would want to be treated if I go into any sort of medical facility. I mean, we've all probably experienced, you know, being treated like lesser than, and, you know, just like a number or your issue. But I think that there's nothing better than having medical care that actually feels like they know you by name and they know your situation, and they ask you about, you know, how's your family doing? How are your kids? Or, you know, I'll just create rapport with all patients and just get to know them on a, you know, a friend level, and ask them about their parents, their kids, their pets, you know, when that next event or race or competition that they're getting ready for is going. And I think just like that little personal touch makes a huge difference for people.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Is there anything else that we're doing because of even just the whole coronavirus thing, you know, it's like, is there anything, like, other than our procedures, is there something that you're spending more time on or doing differently, like, right, because of, you know, the changes we've had to make? It, you know, I don't know, are we having to talk to people more on the phone? Are you spending more time with them, or is it just takes more time to get people in the door? Do you have a sense of what we're doing?
I would say I'm definitely spending more time talking to people. I would not categorize it as they're having a harder time wanting to come in. Yes and no. I guess there's like two situations here. There's a situation of objection where people are just worried right now because of the pandemic and the uncertainty and, like, you know, just job wise. So there's that to kind of break through. So there's just a lot more effort in nurturing patients and clients and onboarding and speaking with them and just hearing them. So yeah, just talking to them about that. And then also people will call and you can tell that they miss social interaction.
Right.
So yeah, a big part of my job that has shifted during this time is I do spend a lot more time when I do get on the phone with someone. It does seem and feel like it's a little bit longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to like duplicate you in the copy machine as we get busier. It's kind of great. It's like we need more Amber because it's like we are working harder for the same numbers of like patients, customers, clients, right?
Right.
But I mean, patients deserve it, and it's like we have to do a whole lot more. And it's just the extra 10 minutes it takes to get them in the door, to sanitize them, take their temperature, do all those things.
Right.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you feel like someone needs to know, or maybe someone who's listening owns a clinic and now their version of Amber is listening to the podcast? Is there anything else that I didn't maybe ask you about that you think would be important?
That's a great question. I would say, hang on to hope, and that I would say lead with abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, when this happened, I was kind of getting into a pattern where people would call, and instead of, leading with abundance and giving them the benefit of the doubt, I would, automatically in my head sort of put them in this box and be like, okay, this person's not going to commit. Like I've seen this a billion times. But, lo and behold, people can surprise you. And so I think that, leading, with your heart and just giving people the benefit of the doubt right now. And like I said earlier, treating people the way that you would want to be treated whenever you're calling for help for yourself or for a loved one. And just lead with abundance and assume that this person that's calling you can afford you. Assume that this person is in a situation where they're going to commit. Because I feel like people can pick up on things even over the phone. It's a huge difference. They say when you're on the phone and you're smiling, you can sound like you're smiling and you automatically come off nicer versus someone who's, stone cold and just answering your questions. So yeah, just hang on to hope, lead with abundance, and treat all these people who are calling you, seeking out help, like they're already your patient.
Awesome. That's awesome. If someone wants to come find you on the internet somewhere, what's the best place for them to go?
You can find me on Instagram mainly. My handle is Ambre Harris, which is just the E and the R are reversed. Awesome. Maybe Aaron can include that.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes.
And you can also find me, on Facebook as well, just under Amber Harris.
Yeah. Or at LeBauer PT on Instagram too, because
absolutely.
You're crushing it with our social media the last few months too.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram. Yes, LeBauer PT.
That's awesome. Well, Amber, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for the Cash PT Lunch Hour, this is Aaron LeBauer and Amber Harris. And go out and assume that you've got the sale. Just treat people like you want to be treated. And give us a shout out. And if you got anything from this podcast, shout us out on Instagram. And I totally appreciate a 5-star rating and review over on iTunes. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.